Tom Arnold just said what many doctors and medical professionals are still too afraid to admit, that obesity is a disease, just like alcoholism. Now, this is the first installment in a new series we're calling GLP-1 with the Stars. And basically, what we're doing, we're just asking celebrities, do you think obesity is a disease? As GLP-1 medications have become wildly popular in Hollywood and around the world, I think that they have a powerful ability to change the entire conversation about obesity as a disease. So I've been curious, how has this shaped conversations among people in Hollywood? And for this installment, I went to Tom Arnold because he's one of the very few celebrities we've ever had come out of Iowa. And a little bit of a background about Tom. You may know him from Roseanne, True Lies, Austin Powers, even his unforgettable interviews about addiction and recovery. But what stands out the most to me about a guy like Tom Arnold is his honesty. Tom has never hidden his struggles or hidden from his struggles. He's spoken openly about alcoholism, opioid use, food addiction, and the long road to recovery. He's also shared about surviving childhood trauma and what it means to fight for healing as an adult. So when Tom Arnold says that obesity is a disease, he's not just speaking from some pie in the sky theory. He's speaking from the trenches of someone who's actually lived with it. So let's hear together. I want to play this video that Tom sent me in response to my question. And my question was simple. Tom, do you think that obesity is a disease? And what do you think about these new medications that treat it? Let's hear what Tom had to say back to the OTP community.
Dave in the OTP community. Look at you guys. All right. Is obesity a disease? I have to say that that people that can't control their eating is a disease. It's similar to alcoholism or drug addiction. It is a disease, and we need to make sure we do everything so we don't get any more of those diseases. You got the one, but now you're going to try to keep that in check. Because, man, when it starts piling up, when you're old, you start getting this thing, that thing. It's rough. So we've got to keep that. And maybe even reverse your diabetes with the right food and whatever. Reverse it. That'd be good. You like that. Anyway, I'm an icon. Dave and on the pen community. Go Hawks. Okay, for my I should have freaking guessed that. If I'd have guessed that earlier, this would have been a much different video. But seriously, buddy, congratulations. Keep doing it, man. All right, go Hawks.
Indeed. Thank you to Tom Arnold for that. Now, here's the main takeaway from what Tom just said. And the real moment of truth there is that for people who live with alcoholism and people who live with obesity, the underlying truth is that at times we have felt completely powerless to change the situation. And what I appreciate about what Tom said is it's rare to hear someone with a platform on this stuff get it right. So let's talk about alcoholism and obesity. Like how are these two things similar? Well, let's connect the dots to what Tom just laid out for us. So both alcoholism and obesity are chronic relapsing diseases. Both obesity and alcoholism are influenced by genetics, by trauma, by your environment. And they're fueled by dopamine-driven reward systems, these pathways in our brain that regulate pleasure and reward. And they're marked also by biological changes, physiological things that happen to your body, not just your own poor choices. So people with alcoholism and people with obesity often describe a very similar internal dialogue, right? I know what I should do, but something stronger takes over. And that's not weakness, that's the disease. And yet, only one of these conditions, alcoholism, is widely accepted at this point as a brain-based illness. Obesity still gets labeled as laziness. And you could argue that we have a long way to go with both. But I want to talk about, I think, an important distinction when we're talking about obesity specifically, because obesity is one thing and food addiction is kind of another thing. So let's make that distinction clear. Obesity is a disease of energy regulation, hormonal dysfunction, and metabolic resistance. Food addiction is actually a behavioral pattern, often something that coexists with obesity, but it doesn't have to, right? You can have obesity without binging, and you can binge without having obesity. But when the two collide, the shame that people feel from that can feel absolutely suffocating. And that's why, to bring this all back to what we talk about it on the pen, which is a euphemism for these injector pens that contain GLP-1 medications, that's why GLP-1 medications are changing lives. So how do GLP-1s work for both of these conditions? Well, both semaglutide, the active ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy and Rybelsus, and tirzepatide, the active ingredient in Mounjaro and Zepbound, lower cravings for food and substances like alcohol. They've both been shown in clinical trials, though at varying degrees, that they lower cravings for both. They reduce the dopamine spikes that drive compulsive behavior. We've actually done some videos on this channel. They slow gastric emptying so you feel fuller faster, and they help repair the broken communication between the gut and the brain. And this isn't just about willpower. Both alcoholism and obesity are not just about willpower. It's actually about biologic dysregulation, hormonal dysregulation, dysfunction that is happening at a biological level. So let's take a little look at what the science says. And I think this is going to offer hope for both people living with the disease of obesity and the disease of alcoholism. So in JAMA Psychiatry of 2025, there's a phase 2 trial out of the University of North Carolina that has shown semaglutide lowered alcohol intake, cravings, and binge drinking episodes in adults with diagnosed alcohol use disorder. That's science. Nature Communication in 2024 also showed us a post-marketing study in 80,000 plus patients, and those on GLP-1s had fewer diagnoses of alcohol use disorder and lower relapse rates. And finally, there's a study called the Stream Pilot and Semalco trials. And these are underway right now, and they're studying semaglutide and tirzepatide in both obesity and alcohol use disorder, tracking things like brain scans, drinking behaviors, and long-term outcomes. We also know that there have been studies that have been done on opioid addiction, because these hormones that these drugs mimic actually are involved in that pleasure reward center of your brain, and they act in that center of your brain. We just did a video recently where we showed folks living with obesity who took brain scans prior to taking tirzepatide. When they were shown highly palatable foods, their brains lit up like a Christmas tree. And once the tirzepatide was added into the equation, all of that dimmed down substantially. Why? That response, that pleasure reward response, was just no longer firing the same way with the signaling that was happening now with these analog hormones. So you deserve care, not condemnation, because this all goes to biological issues and things that we finally have amazing treatment for. So if you've ever felt controlled by your cravings, or if you've ever thought, why can't I just stop? You're battling broken biology. And now there's finally this way forward. So I hope that you'll share this video with a friend. I hope you'll send it to your doctor. I hope you'll share this if you've ever been told to just try harder. There are scientific answers for why you've struggled. And to Tom specifically, thank you again for doing this. You didn't have to do this, and you didn't have to just answer the question. You could have just said, this isn't worth my time. But actually, I think what you did here, Tom, was you gave a voice to millions of other people who have struggled, and you gave them permission to stop blaming themselves in your reply. And if you specifically, Tom, are still navigating any of those struggles with addiction, or just curious about how these medications work, I'd love to have you back on the podcast. We could potentially bring a medical professional on or something. I would love to talk addiction recovery, passion, and the science that might be helping folks like you and like me live freer lives than we ever thought was possible, and how these drugs are changing the game, and how this leaves a door wide open for a future where we could look at less addiction. Doors open anytime. You have an open invitation. I hope you enjoyed this GLP-1 with the stars. Please hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button if you found this video helpful. Thank you for being here and for being the best part of what we do. We will catch you on the next one.